Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again in this YouTube astrological segment. I'm going to be talking about astrology and the murder of King Von. King Von was a rapper. He's out of Chicago, Illinois. Only 26 years old when he passed away. He died due to a shooting that was either in a nightclub or it was outside a nightclub. I believe it was in Atlanta, Georgia, or very close to Atlanta, Georgia. Um, the thing about this is, I mean, it's terrible. You have somebody so young just passing away like this and getting involved in shootings, and I mean, you hear these things going on constantly. It seems like it's become more prevalent, like in the United States. Anyway, well, first thing I want to do is send my prayers and condolences out to the family and friends of King Von, if any of them do happen to see this video. And I'm going to talk about some astrological natal placements he has and some transits that might have been tied in, sadly, to a very untimely passing. And again, this was due to a shooting and shootout at a nightclub, or he was either outside the nightclub or inside the nightclub in I believe it was Atlanta, Georgia, or if it was not Atlanta, Georgia, and then on the outskirts of it. But the thing about it is, when I'm looking at his chart, well, first I want to talk about, I don't have his time of birth, of course, but I do have his birth date. According to Wikipedia.org, it's August 9th, 1994. Puts his sun, of course, in Leo. And ironically he called himself King Von is his rapper name, and it also puts the moon in Virgo. Now it shows a lot of that, and of course having the sun in Leo. Of course, sun in Leo could be the quintessential entertainer. That's connected to sun being the basic wants and wanting to shine. Where the sun is in your chart is often that indicator where you want to shine. Of course, this is an entertainment industry, doing something where he could perform. You could consider it the arts, and I'm sure he put some creativity into his performances. Given that we're talking about the sun being in Leo, and the sun, as far as the sun is also our expression or self-expression. So obviously, I'm sure in a very flamboyant manner, and bringing that into the moon in Virgo, into, I'm sure, a very good work ethic. And the thing about, and I'm sure he was very, I mean, probably punctilious with details as well, given that he did have a Virgo moon, and that is, and the moon, of course, I mean, is the public. So what I see is him having a moon in Virgo. It tells me that he wanted to be, recognized, perhaps publicly, as maybe somebody that was really very reliable, very punctual, a person that was very industrious and hardworking, a person that could compartmentalize and do and really just be about having a good work ethic and being very precise with things and very timely. So another thing, there's some other things in this chart I'm looking at and trying to decipher and see as far as natal placements and transits. Sadly, that might have been as far as tied into his passing. Now, transit Pluto at the time of his death was not far from his natal Uranus, and that could be an indicator of a very unexpected, very shocking passing. And transit Pluto is very close proximity to his natal Neptune as well. So this might have been something that could have been drug related. It might be something that, as far as his death goes, might have a little mystery, might be a little bit, nebulous and unclear, at least in the beginning part, as far as the details go, in really what actually, what exactly transpired and what precipitated the shooting. Now, apparently, it was thought that the police had been involved in terms of shooting him, but now it's stated that it is not. It had nothing. The police did not shoot King Von. Though they were called on, of course, to intervene, but my understanding is that the police did not shoot King Von. Now, another thing that I'm looking at in his chart, now his natal chart, he does have Pluto in the fourth house. The fourth house is the end or latter part of life, and sadly, in some cases, when you have Pluto there, I mean, Pluto can just flat out obliterate and destroy that end of life. The end of life, I mean, for people, is supposed to be, you know, like that last third of life between, you know, age 50 to the time you pass. And he has, and Pluto is also murder. So you're talking about, you know, a murder. Maybe in this case it manifested in a killing, in him being murdered, which impacted his end, first the end of life. His Pluto is conjunct his North Node, and sadly, this might have been part of some sad, you know, future that he had, and being in the North Node being in Scorpio. It's something that could have more diabolical energy, more corrupt energy. You know, somebody shooting him, dying due to some criminal related activity. Shooting, of course, is criminal, but one of the people that may have been involved in terms of in the shooting that was shooting him, they either shot him or shot at him. They may have been, you know, I don't know what their situation was, if they were actually criminals or they were part of, you know, they were doing, you know, something corrupt during the course of their life. But anyway, Scorpio just gives things a little bit more nefarious energy. Now, another thing that I noticed too is that when I look at look at his chart too, that one of the rulers of the fourth house of the end of life, Mars, falls in the 11th house. So it's an indicator of the end of life coming in some group, club, or organization. The planet is Mars in Gemini. Mars could be verbally combative. This was a war of words. I'm sure that was exchanged initially before it escalated into gunfire. Now, and this was either in or outside the nightclub, and of course, a nightclub you could say is, you know, it's a place that has, you know, it's a club, you know, it's for clubbing, it's for people that are in, you know, generally you're talking about groups of people where people are going to congregate. So, another thing too is when I'm looking at this, sadly, is that when I look at this chart too, he also has transit Neptune. Transit Neptune is transiting the 8th house in the solar sunrise chart. Again, I did a solar sunrise chart, which of course is where you put the sun at the same position as the ascendant, because I didn't have a time of birth for him. And this puts transit Neptune in his 8th house, and that's another indicator that this death, this murder of him, may have been, you know, it's going to be somewhat maybe nebulous and unclear. It was a place where alcohol, I'm sure, was served. Hold on a moment, people. Sorry about that, I'm back. Anyway, well, I'm just trying to see if there's anything else, you know, in the chart that I'm noticing in terms of that might have manifested in his passing. Now, he also, in this chart, he does have Saturn in Pisces in that 8th house of death. So it's not surprising this was a death that took place that was really, you know, that might have caused a lot more despondency. It was something where, you know, alcohol, I'm sure, was served, where there might have been dancing as well. Pisces is associated with dancing, as Pisces on that 8th house cusp. One of those rulers falls in the 4th house of, you know, the end of, you know, the end of life, the latter part of life. But this is something where, I mean, you're talking about the 8th house is also the house of legacy. and having Pisces on it, that could be one for the legacy as a rapper. Perhaps he dances well. You know, poetry is associated with Pisces. Now, when I'm going back to one of the rulers of the eighth house and the fourth house. Now, it's interesting because the fourth houses are our family. You know, our end of who we family and who we're close to home with. Now I'm wondering if his death had occurred, with somebody that he was close to home with. I think that what it was a shooting that took place between him and at least one friend, and then against, and they were shooting against another group of people. So this could have very well been a death then that took place where he died, where he was with somebody he felt close to home with. But that I have not confirmed, and you may want to look that up on the internet and confirm that. But anyway, now and another thing too, another one of the rulers of that eighth house is Neptune, and that conjuncts Uranus. So that's another indicator of a death that could come, that could be very unusual, come in a very shocking, spontaneous, and maybe somewhat unusual manner. He has, and that Neptune is in Capricorn as well, and that's over something, it could be based, the fact that it's in Capricorn, maybe this had something to do, his death based on his position, his status, the recognition that he received, notoriety doing what he did. Neptune in Capricorn could also show, doing something like with poetry and singing music as a career. It could give very good, might give some good business acumen, being intuitively, having good business acumen, being able to make business-related, career-related decisions due to insight, being very insight, having good business acumen, but doing so perhaps with some that Neptune intuition. And in any ways, really not much more, to talk about in terms of his chart and transits and natal placements that may have been tied in, sadly, to his passing. Another thing I did notice, that he does have transit Uranus in the solar sunrise chart in the 10th house, and that could be an indicator of something very unexpected that might be happening in matters connected with the career, your notoriety, your recognition. Another thing I did see as well is that I was talking about his Saturn, the Saturn before being in the 8th house. Now, it also, based on the solar sunrise time, makes an opposition to his moon in Virgo. Now, this is another kind of going off on a Gemini moon tangent here. It makes me wonder if maybe his parents had been separated or divorced. When you have the moon in opposition to Saturn, often the parents can be separated from each other because or divorced. Saturn is connected with the biological father. The moon is the mother, and when you have one across from the other, it shows, it's an indicator of them being away from each other, or there may have been a contentious situation between the two. But remember, this is based on the solar sunrise time. If he was born a lot later in the day, then the moon, I don't think, would have made an opposition to his natal Saturn. Another thing I wanted to say that I was looking at too is that transit North Node was not far from his natal Mars at the time of the shooting, and that could be an indicator of passing away. Sometimes, when you're talking about when the transit North Node is involved with Mars, the transit of the North Node can be about issues one may have to confront or address, and Mars is associated with gunfire. The fact that this was and it falls in the 11th house of groups, clubs, and organizations. Again, this did take place either in the nightclub or outside the nightclub. Mars being in Gemini, I would not be surprised if one of those shots that hit him might have got him in the arm or shoulder or hand. Another placement that is associated with, as far as injuries and possible physical wounds and suffering, is his Continental Chiron, and that is in Virgo. And that could be an indicator he could have gotten shot in the abdomen or spleen area, or somewhere near, might be somewhere in that. It wouldn't surprise me if he got shot in that area somewhere by the abdomen and or spleen, and also the pain. I would say too. I mean, looking at his looking at this, it's just a terrible situation. And when is all this nonsense going to end? We have the COVID-19, all the madness and mayhem and chaos connected with that currently going on, and then we have all these unnecessary, vile shootings that are taking place as well. And it just, to me, it's mind-boggling and preposterous. These young people, sadly, passing away. They're in the prime of their life, or even before that, and then not a lot of them are not even making it to age 30. But really, really not much more, for me to state. But I wanted to say I did notice some other things. I thought I was going to go and transit moon falls in the 12th house in the solar sunrise chart, and the moon, of course, about the public, and the moon sadly can also be about our soul, and that's being in transiting the 12th house of limitations, a house of ending. It's an indicator, sadly, that it was passing, perhaps in this particular instance. And really is not much. That's really pretty much it. I noticed too, looking at it again, he does have the transit sun. I'm just seeing now in Scorpio is in that 4th house of the end of life, and the sun could be about what we put our focus on. It could be about shining, really about the life. Being you're talking about the 4th house is the end of life, and this is what it's shining the light on, and it's done through, and being the sun, being through being the sun in Scorpio, perhaps through murder in this case. And you're talking about Scorpio can manifest a more sinister energy, and the transit of the sun in Scorpio at the time was not far from his natal North Node. And when you're talking about the North Node in astrology, and when it's involved in a transit, again, it can be about issues one may have to confront or address. In this case, the sun being about life, in this case, and being in the sign of destruction and death, Scorpio. So, and also murder. So, this is it's really, I think now I am finally finished with this. But anyway, people, this is Edwin Learnard, and until next time, stay well.